Are you suddenly feeling this urge to take action on your desires? Well, it's not random. It's actually the Aries energy, the season of Aries, that is actually inviting you to remember who you are. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD, and ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, the study of spirituality. I'm also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious. This time of year, Aries, is the time of new beginnings. What does that mean for you? Because most times when we think about astrology, when we think about the zodiac, we only think of it in terms of characteristics of individuals. But we rarely consider the fact that this time, the times of the zodiac, are actually places and areas or moments where your ability to materialize and manifest the things that you desire actually fall in line with the cosmos, the universe. So instead of thinking in terms of the zodiac astrology being only about personalities, think in terms of how this time aligns with you and your desire, not just who you are as an Aries or a Leo or a Scorpio, right? You want to be mindful that this time of year is actually something you should pay attention to when it comes to you living out your nature as a creator. So it's important to recognize that the season of Aries, it actually represents the beginning. It represents the start of the actual astrological year. It's actually the beginning of the year, even though we're in the middle of March and going into April. When you think about Aries, Aries is also fire sign. Fire represents passion. It represents action. So during this time is ultimately when you are supposed to be focused in on action, when you're supposed to be dialed into what it is that you desire, not getting caught up in planning, but really more focused on initiating. Aries represents the I am, okay? It represents pure consciousness. Now, when you make that statement, I am, we often think of it as just simply descriptive, right? I am this, I am that. But the most powerful understanding of I am is that I am is not just something that is meant to describe yourself. It is actually you activating reality, activating your nature as a creator. So when you make the statement, I am, that statement alone is pure consciousness. But then when you follow it up with, I am rich, I am in love, I am abundant, then you take pure consciousness in a state of motion toward creating that which you have claimed. So Aries represents the I am. Aries represents pure consciousness. It represents the beginning. It represents the spark of something amazing, something new. So you must align, right, time to step into your identity as a creator. You must recognize that this is your time. You must recognize that this is the moment. Though, even if this moment were to pass, that doesn't take away from you actually putting out that intention of aligning, this time, this moment with your identity as a creator and understanding your nature as a creator. So you have to recognize that when you make a statement, I am, the power in that, but also the significance and how it relates to other aspects of metaphysical sciences like astrology. Because all of these things actually are, connected, right? They all intertwined with one another. So I am is just not simply a statement of an affirmation. It is also entwined in the cosmos, in the seasons, in the cycles by which the Earth, which our solar system, which our universe is actually governed by. So these things connect with one another. And that's my intention with sharing with you this information today. Now, when you think about Aries as the first spark of the cycle of manifestation, you recognize that, okay, if Aries is a start, then all the other astrological signs are also part of the progress of materialization. And we'll get into those later. But you must understand that nothing happens without Aries in its nature, without starting. Nothing happens. And so you have to own the essence of that. You must be really bold. You must be really confident. You must be a self, initiator. You must be able to just get things going. And you got to have a lot of courage, because a lot of times people are often paralyzed by this idea of planning and perfection. They want to make sure that their plans are in line and perfect before they take action. And though planning is very important, it's something that definitely can bring value, can bring insight, can speed up the process of materialization, manifestation. This is not the time. This is not the season to be focused on planning things. This is the time to focus on doing. This is the time to focus on doing. And then as you are doing, the nature of planning, the nature of strategy comes into play. Because when you are doing, then you are getting the right data and information that tells you what about that, whatever you're doing, what about it that's actually working versus what's not working. You see, when you plan something, you're taking data from other sources. Those other sources don't have the same energy you have, frequency, intention, right? Wisdom, knowledge, understanding. So when you take those templates from other people thinking that it's going to work the exact same way for you, oftentimes you find that you're wrong, right? So you must understand that you have to really get into customizing. And you only get into that when you actually start the process of working the plan, right? Start the process of initiating the thing that you desire, what it takes to actually create that. Then you begin to figure out the nuances and how the intricacies of what it takes or what works and what doesn't work according to who you are and your frequency. And thus, that's how you make the adjustments. Okay. So you have to recognize that right now it's important to set clear intentions, right? That's the real essence of Aries in this season, is setting a clear intention on what you desire. Make a decision. Make a decision even before you have an understanding of how it's going to appear. Make that decision right now during this time of the year, because this is the time of the year where, planning and the how isn't really that significant. It is simply about consciousness, recognizing its desire, its purpose, its nature, and thus setting it in motion. The how comes later on throughout the process, throughout the journey, you see? So don't overthink it. Just start, just begin. Beginning is the thing that is actually going to fulfill the, results that's going to actually create the bottom line of what you want. Because you can have all the planning down. You can have all the people that you need. You can have all the tools, all the equipment, right? All the data. But it means nothing unless you start. And then you will find once you start and you actually set things in motion, like I said before, then you will notice that it will be a little bit different for you. So all the tools and all the people that you pull together, you will find that you have to make some changes with those things. So recognize that it's really about setting the intention, beginning and moving forward, and simply just starting. This is your time to start. That's what this season is about. Okay. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait to be perfect. Okay. An exercise that I recommend doing is to actually like write down a powerful affirmation list, identifying like your basic, intentions. What are your intentions? What do you wish to create for yourself? Make sure it's dialed in and is true to who you are. Nothing generic like I want to make $1 million, right? Now, yes, you can focus on monetary value, finances, but make sure it is connected with who you are. You know, what is it that you really want to do, right? In order to make that money, in order to achieve that financial success. What does that look like to you? What are you? Who are you, right? If you are somebody who has a random job that doesn't align with who you are, but you have desires and, fantasies of practicing knitting, crocheting, painting, music, writing, that is the best way to assemble this list, right? And identify a base intention of like, hey, I want to create $1 million by doing what I love, doing what I'm interested in, right? Which is, say, painting, which is crocheting, which is maybe running, right? Taking up running as a sport, something that you do, and figure out a way, a means of making money from that once you start it, you see? Because once you start, you think you'll be put in a place where you meet people, okay? You put the intention out there, you meet people, you go to places, you make connections, and therefore you find out ways on how you can actually make that money from doing something like running. So you have to take one bold physical action towards your desire. You have to really own it. This is the time to do so. If you are feeling a push, if you're feeling a sense of energy that's just stirring in you where you feel different, about life, you feel maybe even stagnant and you feel restless and you want something new, but you're not really sure why you feel that way. It all comes down to this. It comes down to Aries season. It comes down to your consciousness trying to communicate to you that this is the time to actually act and move forward. This is a time to actually make that shift, to initiate that transformation, the transformation of who you think you are, ego-based and driven, versus who you truly are and becoming that true self, that true essence. Okay. So remember, Aries is a fire element, right? So with that, you want to keep that in mind, the idea of a spark, the idea of fire, the idea of a flame, And so when you start to practice things like mindfulness or meditation or just simply being still, it's good to incorporate, fire element rituals, candle work, breath work. Breath work is you don't think it has to do much with fire, but it does because your breath is essentially the fire within you. Okay. So as you breathe and you breathe appropriately, sometimes you can feel and visualize in your mind's eye a flame. And so with each inhale, exhale, you recognize that flame growing and coming back, growing and coming back in. You see, movement. Movement is about using the body. So you really want to be mindful about the elements of fire during this season, because that fire, recognizing and seeing fire, will also kind of stimulate and trigger you to really think about that flame within you, right? That you wish to burn with passion. Okay. Of course, not burn out, but burn with passion and desire for the thing that you've been desiring and dreaming about and wanting. You see? So you have to understand that this is about focusing on identity-based manifestation, right? Become it before you see it. You have to start. When you start, it isn't starting from a place of questioning, worrying, doubting. You're starting from a place of recognizing that simply because you desire it, you understand that there's a part of you that's meant for it. And so what happens is the ego, the conscious mind, even the subconscious, unconscious mind, they tend to get into the analyticals, right? They tend to get into the statistics and the strategy, right? But oftentimes, when you are starting something new, you don't have that information. All you have is the desire. And when you recognize that the desire is all you need, then you begin to trust in that desire, because that is the thing that your consciousness is sending to you to speak to you about, right? To speak with you on when it comes to living your purpose, following your nature as a creator, and letting you know this is the path of creating the fulfillment and the life that you want. So you become it, not concerned about seeing it, not concerned about how it actually manifests. You become it first. You become the creator of that thing first. You become the essence, the habits, the mindset. And then all the things that we focus on as far as perfection and plans, all those things come later. Whenever somebody is a master at something, what really makes them a master is their ability to adapt, because every time they create something within the wheelhouse or the category of what it is they are masters of, they're masters because it's not simply a matter of, oh, every time I make this thing, say if it's a sword, right? Every time they make this sword, the process of making it is exactly the same. It isn't. Every piece of metal that they use, every piece of wood that they use, the temperature, the environment, is always slightly different. But because they have experience and they understand and trust within themselves, they can recognize their ability to adapt to those nuances while understanding the information that they have gathered over the course of time. So it takes creativity. It takes intuition. And when you go on this journey, you first have to start with that creativity, that intuition, that simple desire of wanting to take this path. And as you take the path, everything else reveals itself to you. So you must understand that, this process is really about affirming that you are a creator. It is about recognizing your role in connection with the cosmos, in connection with the universe, as to you understanding your desire to create something and how the universe is systematically laid out by way of these seasons and the energy of the universe, and how it is showing you, okay, this is the time to focus on this. This is the time to focus on that. So right now, the season of Aries is the time to start. Simply that. Just start. Be it. Do it. Everything else will follow along the journey and the process of the rest of the year. But right now, it's only about starting. If you start now, then the universe will be more in alignment with you. The universe is always in alignment with you, right? Don't get it twisted. Don't get me wrong by saying that is only the time. Aries is not only the time, but the energy of Aries is way more in alignment, right? There's less resistance within Aries because the nature of Aries season is initiation, is starting, is new beginnings. So as you are here in this moment of Aries, take that energy with you, right? And move forward in following and pushing forward and creating that which you desire. Affirmations is a good thing to do always, but particularly during the season, because it's also about programming your subconscious, your unconscious. So whatever it is that you desire for yourself, make sure you have a bold, clear affirmation statement that will help you to just move forward in initiating, move forward in creating, move forward in being. Okay. I am bold enough to begin, right? I am a creator. I am powerful without a plan. I manifest through movement and action. So make statements like that align with the season, but also aligns with you and what you desire and what you are meant to create. Okay. Aries is not about being perfect. It's not about perfection. It's simply about starting. Simply about starting. Perfection is something that we get closer and closer to, but truly never really achieve. Perfection is movement. Perfection is life. Perfection is change and transformation. In order for you to experience those things, guess what? You have to do what? You have to start. And that's what this time is about. Manifestation doesn't begin with you seeing things, right? It begins simply from you choosing, just simply choosing to move forward and create. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the first step. And if you take that first step, then you will see the next step. And then you take the next step. And then eventually, over the course of time, you recognize that you have climbed this massive staircase of success. All right. Recognize that though Aries is a representation of starting, a representation of the I am, the spark, the fire, this is all about you. This is all esoteric knowledge and information. You are the fire. Okay. You are the fire that is created to burn, created to actually represent and bring life to the universe, life to all that you experience. You are that. That is part of your nature as a creator. It isn't just to create the thing that you desire, but it is also to create a collective reality, a space, a harmony, a, vibration, a frequency, an existence of freedom, of joy, of happiness. So as the fire, as the spark, it is your responsibility to move forward in that way, So I recommend things like, I recommended the rituals using, like candle work and breathing and things of that nature. You can also use visualization. Okay. Remember, fire represents starting, the spark, creation represents life. So what I would do is I would imagine a flame, just like when we think about breath work and we think about a flame. Also, you want to visualize that flame in your heart. You want to visualize an understanding like, okay, this flame that I'm breathing in myself, that is expanding, contracting with each breath. It is also connected with my heart, is going to allow you to feel yourself becoming one with that fire, with that essence of beginning, starting, because you are one with that. You see, so then it is important to affirm to yourself a bold next step. What are you going to do? What is next? What is an action? What is the decision? What are you going to move forward with right now in order for you to actually begin the momentum of creation, begin the momentum of actually living and being who you're meant to be? Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to begin this season of Aries, right? By simply just coming up with a concept, an idea, understanding. What are you boldly beginning this season? What are you doing? What are you beginning? I want you to write this in the comments. What is your bold decision? What are you creating? What are you starting this year? And I'm not talking about a New Year's resolution that happens in January. I'm talking about a true New Year's resolution that is starting now in the year, in the season, in the beginning of this year of Aries. What is that? So share with me what it is that you are beginning this season. And then I will continue to support you and walk you through each of the seasons after and how you can make a shift in following through with the process of the seasons. to support you in actually understanding how the seasons, how the universe, how this process of syncing up your desire with the cycles of the universe to support you in creating that which you desire. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook, The Power Within. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.